I am very happy to invite back Andrew Webley, the CEO of Smarter Web Company. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
It's been, I think, 2 months since you came into the studio. Longest 2 months of your life?
Certainly some of the best 2 months of my life. It seems like a lifetime ago that I came into your studio. A real lifetime ago.
That's right. And the stock was at 28 pence. I think, did you own 30 Bitcoin or 50 Bitcoin, something along those lines? Give us the total now, the official release total of how many Bitcoin you now own.
So we own 2,050 Bitcoin, but everyone can see from the public filings that we've released that we've got enough cash for over 2,300 Bitcoin. So that's a fair multiple from when I saw you, which was only 2 months ago.
That's right. And we've seen a lot of volatility in the stock. It's gone from 28 pence when you were on up to as high as, did it touch £6 at one point?
Yeah, intraday.
So the volatility has just been incredible, and we need to talk about this the new move into these bonds, because it's not just a convertible bond, is it? It's a smarter convertible bond.
Yeah, so when we listed the business and we IPO'd it, we did effectively private placements. So from the start up until now and into the future, we can raise capital through equity raising, private placements, whether that's from retail investors, high net worth investors, or institutions placements. And then what we did is we devised a way that we could do something that's very common in the States, which is an ATM style facility, so that in the background, every single day, providing it's an up day, we can effectively sell our own shares through an intermediary, and we can raise capital that way. And then the third thing that we announced yesterday is what we've called Smarter Convert, which is the third strategy that we've got, which we believe is an excellent way to generate additional capital for the business. And in my opinion, with zero downside for the business, funnily enough, zero downside for the investors as well. And that's a third way that we can generate capital for the business to fulfill our business strategy.
That was, and the way I like to think of it is pools of liquidity. And originally, you were just swimming in this pool of liquidity of equity raisings. And the ATM, like you say, just gives that, a nice little announcement every couple of weeks now that updates people on, you almost don't notice it. Because it's like a reverse buyback, is how I think of it. And then, this third one yesterday, if we're going to stick with the Apple's theme, because Bitcoin does make it a little bit more complicated in people's minds. But the worst case scenario is people have given you £21, you instantaneously go and buy a load of apples, and the very worst thing that can happen to the company is you have to give the apples back.
Well, yeah, but we keep 2% of the apples as well. So from the investor's point of view, they're sort of risking 2% of their apples in order to make a greater return. And from the business's point of view, we're hoping that the apples convert into equity, and then they become our apples. And it's a beneficial way of raising equity. So as an example, because the premium that they pay, the conversion price they pay, is only 5% above the market price at the time, it's better to the tune of 5% for my shareholders that I can do it in that way if it converts. So and there's no interest or anything like that on it. It's 0% interest from a really, really credible investor. And that was the other thing that everyone started to understand the Smarter Convert yesterday. And I think over the next few days, they'll understand it and they'll see it how I see it.
Yeah.
But the really cool moment also yesterday was it was our first, public name that's become an institutional investor. Obviously, we've got institutional investors, but this is the first capital raising that we've done where we've been able to name the institutional investor, and they're really good people. So that's great.
And so, can we talk about how this came about? Did they come to you with the idea, or I know that you've been working on it for weeks. Is it did you start off with a seed, and then you kind of negotiated on how it should look, or was it simple to come up with?
Yeah, so I think about everything all the time in terms of ways that we can generate capital and all of the other aspects of the business, because, in some ways it's very simple, in some way there's a lot to do. So we think about all these things, and we've got lots of ideas of different things we'll do in the future. Now, I met with Michael Saylor from Strategy a couple of weeks ago in London, and we had a good chat about what we should be doing longer term. But clearly his business is way bigger than ours at the moment.
So far.
One thing that I'm slightly worried about is exposing the business to any debt. So I'm quite cautious. I love Bitcoin. I've been investing in it for almost 10 years. I believe it's the best asset in the world. But my job as the CEO of the company that I set up 15 years ago, we listed this year, is to see that the company is very, very successful for the medium to long term. So in the short term, we do have to be careful about debt. So we've had this idea, and we've had loads of people suggest different things to us over the last couple of months. And, some of those things are good, some of them not so good.
Yeah.
So the thing that I couldn't get my head around until very, very recently, let's say a week ago, is exactly how I could do this thing so that I was 100% happy to do it, because I don't want to do it if there's any doubt. That's not good enough. So that's why the terms are in some ways very, very simple, in my opinion, very, very clean, but also beneficial for everyone involved, in my opinion. So it's just getting the terms right,
Yeah.
So in any relationship, you have to make sure that the thing that you're doing together works for everyone. Otherwise, it won't work for the long term. It's as simple as that. So what I didn't want a deal that was, lopsided for the investor or for the company, because it's not going to work for the long term. And we want to sell a lot of this particular instrument.
Right.
So it just took a bit of time to get it right. And I'm really pleased with it. There's a couple of small tweaks that we might make for future rounds.
Okay.
Maybe we'll increase the premium that they have to pay. Maybe we'll extend the duration from 12 months to 24 months. We want it to be quite short term.
Yeah, that was the thing that kind of struck out to me, was 12 months is relatively short in the life of a bond. So, that definitely, had it been 24 months, I would feel a little bit more comfortable even. I like it as a shareholder. But 24 months it just seems like a decision has to be made relatively soon, because we know how time flies, don't we?
Yeah, well, that's why it's priced as it's priced. So their conversion price is very, very close to the current market price.
Yeah.
When it gets into the second half of the instrument, so the second 6 months, I've got the right to force them to convert it if it's 50% above that. If you look at the last month or two, you can see, providing you believe in Bitcoin and you believe in what we're doing as a company, you can see how we'll quite comfortably get past that level. So that's why the 12 months is, sort of absolutely fine in my mind.
Yeah.
And then you've also got to think about the fact that worst case scenario, and I put this in the announcement as well, because I wanted to put it in simple terms, worst case, best case scenarios. Worst case scenario, we give the Bitcoin back.
Yeah.
And importantly, the $21 million that we've had come into the company, if Bitcoin falls in value, we give back the $21 million of Bitcoin that we bought with it. So we're not exposed to the volatility. In the short term, in 1 year, I don't think that you would necessarily want to structure it like that if it was based on fiat. But of course, if it was based on fiat, there would be other complications there. For example, there might be a small premium that you have to pay on the interest, and things like that. So I genuinely believe that it's a fantastic thing for the company. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest from other people. But like everything else that we'll do, we'll probably sell a lot of it, but we'll also sell it alongside our other activities and cap it to approximately 30%. But if you go back to those three things that we've used, the placements, the ATM, now Smarter Convert, any investor needs to step back and look at the three of them together. Yeah. So they all work together to make the company bigger, again, in my opinion.
Exactly. It's almost like people who are scared about paying an MNAV premium, and their thought process is, right, why don't I just take the money and invest in Bitcoin? Well, this is basically doing that. This is giving them the chance to buy a convertible bond, which is basically buying Bitcoin minus 2% with an upside call option on the Smarter Web company.
Yeah, 100%. And, obviously we've spoken to other people that are interested in this particular product already. And, in the short time, i.e. 24 hours since the RNS came out, we've had people get in touch with us also expressing an interest as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people, there's a lot of institutions out there that believe in Bitcoin like I do. And there's a lot of people out there that have got a lot of Bitcoin. And we always say, what is better than Bitcoin? Well, the only thing in our opinion that's better than Bitcoin is compound Bitcoin, which effectively we're giving people some exposure to something like that. Yeah. I think it's a great solution for everyone, the shareholders, the new investors, and the company.
So let's take a look at the website, this great Treasury analytics page that you put together. So Bitcoin hold, we see there, 2050. We see the NAV now up above 200 million sterling, which is huge. Now, does that include the 21 million? And it includes the 8 million that you raised the other day, but it does not include any updated ATM amount.
No, so that's almost right. So the figures on our dashboard, if you zoom up to the top where it says shares in issue and the market cap, we've put that in as a diluted figure. So what we did yesterday morning is for the shares in issue, we added in the shares that would potentially be issued if the Smarter converts, just to give people as much transparency and as realistic a figure as they should be using if they're looking at our company. So then if you look at the NAV, the 200 million approximately figure, and it's worth, saying when we're talking about our NAV of 200 million pounds, approximately, that we don't have any debt as a business, zero debt. If you're not counting Smarter Convert as a debt, because it's kind of debt, kind of isn't debt. So 200 million pounds there. And then the most exciting thing for me at the moment is if we look to the right of there and we look at the MNAV, you can see that if you believe in the Bitcoin Treasury model, which I do, obviously, you can see that, based on the last few months, we look, quite compelling at that point. And you can compare that to things like MetaPlanet, Strategy, Capital B, which was formerly called the Blockchain Group in Paris, all the Bitcoin Treasury companies that I actually hold that I really like. Yeah. And you can see that it's pretty compelling at the moment if you believe in what we're doing.
That's right. So back to where you were on the 1st of May. So in terms of if we wanted to think of this like a PE ratio, then the company has never been so cheap to invest in on a valuation basis. From the 1st of May, which that is really interesting. And it also feels to me safer because the hype has gone. This craziness when we were up at double digits, even 15 times MNAV, that was it felt like almost like a meme stock, the way people were treating it at that stage. But now it feels you've managed to bring it back to this compelling, serious business that, as you say, you're finding new sources of liquidity. Because not only did you start with the equity offerings, you then listed in the US. And it's got the US listing, then the ATM, then this convert. Are there any other ones that are in the public domain that you can look forward to this new pool of liquidity potential?
Yeah, so we also managed to get in place a Frankfurt line of stock. So that's really important because we've got quite a big global base of investors, not just UK investors. I live in the UK. We're a UK company, but we are, as my daughter says, a global phenomenon, which she can say the word better than me, actually. And she's only 12. So we do have the Frankfurt line of stock. We do have some other ideas of what we'll be doing in the not too distant future, but I can't really talk about that one. Certainly. Going back to the point about the MNAV and the history and where we're at the moment, like this is just markets, as you know, Rich. Yeah. When things are cheap, you know, less people buy. When things are expensive, more people buy. You know, that's what creates opportunities and things. You know, I've increased my holding in Metaplanet this week. I've increased my holding in the blockchain group last week, which is now called Capital B. You know, I fairly recently increased my holding in the Smarter Web company at approximately 100 times higher than when we listed the business.
Yeah.
I put in approximately £100,000 of my own cash into the company at that point. I think it's approximately the share price at the moment, maybe a bit higher. So, you know, it's just how it goes. You know, we're in August at the moment. We're busier than ever, but the market is quieter than it's been in our life as a public company because it's August. So you've got all these discrepancies. And all I can do as the CEO is I can keep doing what we're doing. You know, if we look at just this week alone, you know, we've announced a capital raise on Monday. We've announced Smarter Convert on Wednesday. Today is Thursday. And, you know, maybe there'll be other announcements before the week's out. We'll have to wait and see.
What do you think the effect will be if Bitcoin goes down?
Well, it depends how much it goes down by, right? So if it goes down a lot, which is not what I believe, then clearly our shares are going to take a hit because I don't believe in pounds. So I believe in Bitcoin. So we hold the assets in our business as Bitcoin rather than, you know, GBP or dollars or euros or anything. That's how I've run my life for almost 10 years. And that's how we run the business. So obviously, if Bitcoin absolutely bombs out, our shares are going to suffer. It's as simple as that. Now, over the long term, we're not going to sell the Bitcoin. You know, we're an operating business that's been profitable for 15 years. So I think the worst case scenario there is potentially it makes it harder to raise additional capital, you know, to keep the flywheel going.
Yeah.
But then at some point, if we look back at the last, you know, 16 years of Bitcoin, you know, historically, when it's had a correction, it's always then improved and it's gone considerably higher. You know, it's the best performing asset over that time period by far. I think there's only been, off the top of my head, 3 bad years in that time period. 3, you know, which is awesome for any type of asset. So, you know, if Bitcoin has a bad time in the short term, it will be a buying opportunity for people. You know, that's just how it goes. Nothing goes up in a straight line forever, but we believe that Bitcoin will go into the millions and millions and millions and will go up forever. Yeah. But obviously not everyone shares that opinion, which is fine.
Certainly. How do retail get involved in this corporate bond? You know, could there be a chance in the future that there'll be some kind of retail offering? That's complicated, isn't it?
So if you're a high net worth individual, you know, or a professional investor, then potentially you could contact the company and, you know, we could involve you in a future round of this. So that's certainly possible if you meet the FCA criteria in the UK or the equivalent in the States, Europe, etc. Longer term, and this goes back to my chat with Saylor the other day, you know, we hope and we are aiming to have products like Strategy have got in the States. So in the States, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Strategy have done a new line of stock, a preferred share, which is actually the most successful IPO in the States this year. They raised approximately, I think it was $2.5 billion in one of these additional products. But for the current size that we're at, that doesn't make sense to have those listed products, which are quite similar to our Smarter Convert. But you know, I'm not going to want anyone to hold me to it, but in a year, 2 years, as an example, rough timeline, you know, hopefully we'll have those similar products alongside everything else that we do. So yeah, there's options for people.
Fantastic. Well, it's always great to have you on and to see you, to get the update. Congratulations on everything so far. Of course, we have to remind everybody it's on the Aquis exchange, which traditionally has been a little bit more volatile, can be known as being risky than other stocks, and your capital is at risk. And yeah, it's making sure that people get their head around why the stock trades at a premium to its net asset value is the most important thing, most important part of education. Yeah, thanks very much for helping us out with that.
No problem. See you soon. Yeah.
See you soon, Andrew. Thank you.